It started on a Saturday evening at my friend Amanda's house. Her parents had gone out for the night, leaving her older brother, Todd, in charge. Todd was 17, tall and quiet, the kind of person who made you feel safe just by being around. Amanda and I had spent the day planning our night. We had snacks piled up, rented a couple of cheesy horror movies, and set up a makeshift fort in the living room with blankets and cushions. Around 9 p.m., just as we were settling in for our movie marathon, the doorbell rang. Amanda and I exchanged puzzled looks. Todd was upstairs in his room, so Amanda got up to answer the door. I couldn't hear much of the conversation, but I caught the sound of a man's voice, a low, gravelly tone that didn't belong to anyone I knew. A moment later, Amanda came back into the living room, looking uneasy. She said it was just someone asking for directions. It was strange, but I didn't think much of it at the time. We resumed our night, laughing at the over-the-top scares in the movie and munching on popcorn. Halfway through the second movie, Amanda got up to use the bathroom, leaving me alone in the dimly lit living room. That's when I heard it, the faint creak of floorboards coming from the back of the house. At first, I thought it was Todd moving around upstairs. But then I remembered something. Amanda's house was old, and the creaking I heard came from the kitchen, not the second floor. I told myself it was just the house settling. When Amanda came back, I mentioned it to her, but she brushed it off, saying the pipes in the house made weird noises sometimes. We moved on, trying to shake the unease. Around midnight, Todd came downstairs to check on us. He asked if we were okay and warned us not to open the door for anyone. Amanda and I exchanged looks. His tone was serious, and it was unlike him to act so protective. After he went back upstairs, we decided to call it a night and moved to Amanda's bedroom. Her room was small but cozy, with posters of pop bands on the walls and a lava lamp casting a soft, colorful glow. It wasn't long before we heard it again. The faint creak of floorboards, only this time it was closer. Amanda froze, her eyes wide, and whispered, "Did you hear that?" I nodded. My heart raced as I strained to listen. There it was again, a soft shuffling sound, like someone trying to move quietly. Amanda grabbed her phone and called Todd. He came down almost immediately, holding a baseball bat. He told us to stay in the bedroom and lock the door while he checked the house. The minutes stretched into what felt like hours. Amanda and I sat in silence, listening for any sign of Todd. Finally, we heard his voice through the door, telling us it was safe to come out. When we stepped into the hallway, Todd's face was pale. He said he hadn't found anyone, but the back door was unlocked, and the latch was broken. We didn't sleep for the rest of the night. Todd stayed awake, sitting by the front door with the bat, while Amanda and I huddled together in her room. The next morning, Amanda's parents came home, and we told them everything. They called the police, who found footprints leading from the back door to the street. Whoever it was had been in the house, and we had no idea for how long. When I was 13, I had a sleepover at my friend Lily's house. Lily was my closest friend at the time, and we often stayed over at each other's houses. Her place was older, a big 2-story house with creaky wooden floors and a basement that she always claimed was haunted. Of course, I didn't believe in ghosts, so her stories never really bothered me. That night, however, the basement would take on an entirely different kind of fear. It was a Friday, and we were excited to kick off the weekend. Lily's parents were hosting some friends upstairs, so we had the downstairs to ourselves. After hours of chatting, painting our nails, and binging TV shows, Lily suggested we explore the basement. I wasn't thrilled about the idea. The basement at Lily's house wasn't finished. It had bare concrete walls, a single exposed light bulb hanging from the ceiling, and shelves filled with random junk. But Lily insisted, laughing at me for being scared. Reluctantly, I agreed. We grabbed a flashlight and made our way down the creaky staircase. The air was cold, and there was a musty smell that reminded me of wet cardboard. The dim light from the bulb barely illuminated the space, so Lily clicked on the flashlight, sweeping it across the cluttered room. Most of the basement was just what I expected. Boxes of old clothes, broken furniture, and cobwebs hanging from the ceiling. But as we ventured further in, Lily found a door tucked into the back corner of the room. It was small, made of metal, and had a heavy padlock dangling from the latch. "I've never seen this before," Lily said, her voice barely above a whisper. I felt a chill run down my spine. The lock was rusty, but it didn't look old enough to have been there for decades. It seemed deliberate, as if someone had gone out of their way to seal whatever was behind that door. We debated what to do. Part of me wanted to go back upstairs and forget about the whole thing, but Lily was curious. She tugged at the lock, and when it didn't budge, she said we should ask her dad about it. We went upstairs and casually brought it up while her dad was pouring himself a drink. At first, he laughed it off, saying it was just a storage room they didn't use. But when Lily pressed him, his face grew serious. "You girls don't need to mess around down there," he said, his tone unusually firm. "It's just old stuff. Nothing interesting." Something about the way he said it didn't sit right with me. It wasn't just dismissive, it was almost defensive. We tried to move on with the night, but the locked door was all we could think about. Around midnight, after her parents had gone to bed, Lily suggested we sneak back downstairs. I didn't want to, but she insisted, saying she couldn't let it go. This time, we armed ourselves with a screwdriver and a hammer, hoping to pry the lock off. The basement felt even colder than before, and every creak of the stairs made me jump. When we reached the door, Lily used the hammer to chip away at the padlock. Took some effort, but eventually it broke loose. She looked at me with a triumphant grin and pulled the door open. Inside was a small room no bigger than a walk-in closet. It was empty, except for a single wooden chair sitting in the center of the floor. The walls were bare concrete, and the air was damp and heavy. "What the heck is this?" Lily muttered, stepping inside. I stayed by the door, every instinct telling me not to go any further. As Lily examined the room, she noticed scratches on the walls. Deep, jagged marks that looked like they had been made by fingernails. "Do you think this is like some kind of panic room?" she asked. Before I could answer, we heard a noise from upstairs. A loud, deliberate creak, as if someone was walking directly above us. Lily froze, and we both looked at each other. "Did your parents hear us?" I whispered. She shook her head. Her parents' bedroom was on the other side of the house. Whoever was moving around upstairs wasn't them. We quickly shut the door to the strange room and backed out of the basement. The flashlight flickered, adding to the growing sense of dread. Just as we reached the stairs, we heard another noise, this time coming from the basement itself. It was faint, almost like a shuffle, but it was enough to send us sprinting up the stairs. We locked the basement door behind us and ran to Lily's room, locking that door too. For the rest of the night, we sat on her bed, wide-eyed and listening for any sound. We didn't dare go back downstairs until the morning. When we finally told her parents what happened, her dad's face went pale. He didn't yell or get angry. Instead, he simply said, "That's why I told you to leave it alone." We never found out what the room was for, and I never stayed over at Lily's house again. Whatever was in that basement, whether it was part of the house's history or something more recent, I didn't want to know. I didn't think much of it when Maya invited me to her sleepover. We'd been friends for years, and her house was practically a second home to me. It was a small, cozy place in the suburbs, surrounded by tall trees and quiet streets. Perfect for a night of movies, junk food, and whispered secrets. It was just the two of us that night. Her parents had gone out to dinner with friends, promising to be back late. Maya's older sister, Sophie, was supposed to be home, but she had texted to say she was staying at a friend's house. That left the house entirely to us. The evening started off normal enough. We made popcorn, played some music, and spent a good hour scrolling through horror movies before settling on one. I remember laughing at the predictable jump scares, feeling a little braver than usual since I wasn't alone. Around 10 p.m., Maya suggested we move the party to her bedroom. She had strung up fairy lights around her room, giving it a warm, cozy glow, and her bed was covered in fluffy pillows. It was the perfect setup for a relaxing night. As we were scrolling through TikToks and chatting about school, Maya got up to close the blinds. Her window faced the backyard, which was mostly just a patch of grass and some trees. She paused mid-step, squinting as she looked out into the darkness. "What's wrong?" I asked. She shook her head and said she thought she saw something move near the tree line. I got up to look but saw nothing, just the faint outlines of trees swaying in the wind. "Probably a raccoon or something," I said, trying to reassure her. She agreed but quickly pulled the blinds shut and locked the window. We moved on, diving into a long conversation about crushes and classmates. Hours passed, and the earlier moment was forgotten. That is, until we heard it, the faint tapping sound. It was rhythmic, deliberate, and unmistakably coming from the window. We both froze, exchanging wide-eyed looks. Maya whispered that it was probably just a branch, but I could tell she didn't believe her own words. Trying to be brave, I told her I'd check it out. Slowly, I approached the window, pulling the blinds back just enough to peek outside. My heart stopped. Standing at the edge of the yard, partially hidden by the shadows of the trees, was a man. He was dressed in dark clothes, his features obscured by the distance and the poor lighting. But there was no mistaking the fact that he was staring directly at the window. I stumbled back, my voice shaking as I told Maya what I'd seen. Her face went pale, and she grabbed her phone, dialing her parents. While she tried to explain the situation, I crept back to the window for another look. The man was closer now. He had moved to the middle of the yard, standing completely still. His head was tilted slightly, as if he were studying the house. I yanked the blinds shut and told Maya what was happening. Her parents said they were on their way, but they were at least 20 minutes away. We debated calling the police, but Maya hesitated, saying it might just be some guy passing through. Then we heard the sound of footsteps on the side of the house. Maya and I bolted to her bathroom, locking the door behind us. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone. We huddled together in silence, listening for any sound. There was a faint creak of the back porch steps. Then the unmistakable sound of the back door handle being tested. Maya whispered that the door was locked, but I wasn't comforted. Whoever this was, they were trying to get in. The handle jiggled a few more times before stopping. For a moment, everything was quiet. Then came a new sound, knocking at the back door. It wasn't loud or frantic. It was slow and deliberate, like the person on the other side was waiting for someone to answer. We didn't dare move. Minutes felt like hours as we sat in the bathroom, clutching each other and waiting for the sound of her parents' car in the driveway. Finally, we heard it, the crunch of tires on gravel and the slam of car doors. We ran to the window and peeked out to see her dad walking toward the house, holding a flashlight. Maya flung the bathroom door open and ran to the front door, yelling for her dad. When he came inside, we told him everything. He searched the yard and the surrounding area but found no sign of the man. The back door handle had smudges on it, but nothing else. Her parents called the police, who took our statements and said they'd patrol the area. They suggested it might have been someone passing through, but I knew better. The man didn't try to break in. He didn't yell or act aggressive. He just stood there watching and waited for us to notice him. It was the most terrifying thing I've ever experienced. And to this day, I can't sit by a window at night without closing the blinds first.